The girl was tied to some kind of table. Of course she was furious at this point. Maybe there were some doctors or scientists. The man said that he had heard a new technology was used this time. The chief warden was told that this was the case. Astrodome recently bred a new species of insect, said to have the ability to confuse the minds of demons. The man pressed the button. After that, some sort of ball appeared with a living creature inside. The girl was furious and furious. The chief probation officer said they would check then. After that, I poured the liquid into the girl's mouth first. She was very much surprised, and then she went into a rage. The man said it seemed to work. The chief probation officers said they wouldn't listen to what he had to say. The girl's mouth was unzipped at this point. The man said he couldn't hear. Have the girl do it again. The girl at this point became furious. After that, she literally bit the man's neck. She then immediately began to be calmed down. The second man reported that he was dead. The girl was laughing evilly at this point. She looked stubbornly at the head warden at this moment. Tore that girl up pretty bad again. She must be some kind of big shot in the demon's plan. Have them lock her up in the isolation ward and not proceed with plan B. Fate often does terrible things to people. Attention is drawn to the secure area by an auto car, and he was no exception. The guy sat inside the car and looked down at the floor. Next to him was some kind of bull demon. He turned to the guy at this point. Why is he here? He is taking on his true colors. He's just sick of seeing people. The guy just looked at him. He got mad and asked what the guy was staring at. He says to him, "Are you deaf or something?" The guy said, "Crash. He robbed a human official's mansion. Let him look at himself. Do you want to live a human life or what? Are they weaklings who go to them to earn a living? Do they really think that people?" Well said. Nothing is supposed to look like nothing. At this point, they definitely noticed some pig near them. Then he just put his head down. What a shame. No matter how human he looked, he still got in here as a thief. The bull spat at this point. He spit right on the guy's sneaker. The guy, of course, took notice. It seems that only by humiliating him can she indulge her ego. The tattoo on his neck symbolizes the glory of holy war, as it implies the preservation of demonic traits, diet and habits. As much as he despised him, he himself had been taken prisoner by humans, and they were in the same boat, human prisoners. After that, he went into a rage, lashed out at the guy and told him to watch his mouth. That's when the guy got punched in the face. The car was already approaching the prison, a closed island of the Shanwu state, a concentration camp for the unclean. The car pulled up beside the people. A concentration camp chief named Zhao Xin. A man approached the car. He shouted for the criminals to get out of the car. The guy got out of the car at that point. He looked around momentarily. Then they were all brought out and lined up in a row. The man said there were 10 on the list. Why did only 9 come out? That's when the man came to check. He told the gentleman in surprise that the latter was here. He was the only one who was beaten. The chief warden asked who did it. He approached one creature, asking if he did, or if he did. He didn't say anything back to him. He then approached the second prisoner and asked if he might have done it. He replied that the guy at the end of the line did it. The man was interested. He turned his attention to the guy at that moment. A man approached him. He asked the guy's name. Roland answered him that his name was Roland. The man repeated it once more, having a wide smile. He looks that he's not like them, but they still don't complain from behind. He knows what's due for assaulting another inmate. Roland said he acted in self-defense. So that's how it is. The man didn't care about that, just hit the guy. The man said the first rule is not to cross him. Roland became furious after that, but one of the men pointed a gun at him, thus calming him down at once. From now on they are all his slaves. Anyone who causes trouble, he will chop off their head with it. So, he's convicted of theft in Shenwu and sentenced to life in prison. Assaulting another prisoner, he's sentenced to 7 days in the isolation ward. Let them carry out the sentence immediately. The main character was just looking at him at this point. Let them move and hold the line. They demons better work here obediently and think of nothing else. They can't kiss their freedom goodbye. At that moment, the man realized that he had forgotten something. He greeted them and said, "Welcome to hell." Roland looked at him and that was it. There's no turning back now. Have them come here faster. Move it. The man told the protagonist to get out of line. The man started telling him to make it lively. Go to the lockup. It's his favorite place. The protagonist stepped closer to the door. He was then led inside. It was the end. Only the half-dead come out of the old man. Half-dead would be lucky if he ever got out of there. The isolation room was indeed gloomy on the inside. Everyone was free. The man pressed on to the 9th floor. Then my boyfriend and I started downstairs. In fact, they're the only ones here, so we can relax already. Momentum, to the man's surprise, sighed heavily. He abruptly called the guy Agent Roland and said he was good. He began to prepare, only to get a call from the secret intelligence agency. And in the future, if there was a chance, let him remember to put in a good word for him. I didn't expect him to decide to put up a fight to get into a cartridge. Why was he sure this guy would attack? Truth be told, it was a coincidence. He just saw he had a tattoo of an extremist and an organization that stands for the glory of the demon race. He immediately seized the opportunity, hovering against him, guessing that he fiercely hated Kian, who didn't display technical devils. So, how could he resist wanting to beat him up? The man admired him endlessly. It was very cool. They're sorry they had to hit, and he hopes it's okay. Roland lifted his t-shirt at this point. He noticed that he still had a scar. He had heard from an acquaintance in the capital that it was 5th-generation technology. All scouts in the nether realm had to go through it. Transplant surgery to transplant demonic origin, extracted demonic captive. Heard the rejection reaction is down to 30%, but it's still very dangerous in the form of such a life. Roland wanted to say something to the warden. He furiously told the man to stop looking at it. He apologized to the agent. He just couldn't. Better let them talk about their purpose. He has already read all the information, but still wants to hear his side of the story. That's when they kept driving. This demon was captured by their secret intelligence and sent to his prison. Don't know the backstory of the case, but can't say for sure it gives him one headache, but he'll see for himself. A bit of a cranky fowl. The protagonist asked if it was the capricious one. He admires the way he can dance on a sharp ball, so let him not fail. Courage. Xuanwu's strength is with him. The protagonist returned that it was all for Xuanwu. That's when they arrived. The chief warden was welcomed. As the men walked, they told everyone to shut their mouths. The Xuanwu human state and the unclean realm had not hoped to completely annihilate each other for thousands of years. The creature asked the boy what the fuck he was doing here, and another was furious at him as it passed. To win the war, vast numbers of spies were embedded in both sides, and as circumstances expired, he was forcibly recruited into the State Secret Intelligence Service for Humans. After special training, he became a spy. He was promised that if he completed this assignment, he would be free. Roland thought back to his family. He was interested, of course, in freedom. At this point, they had already arrived at their destination. Here they are. He hopes he survives the 7 days. He asks him to come in. He opened the doors for him. The protagonist was his first task, to win this lady's affection. She was sitting right in front of him at that moment. When humans and monsters begin to feud, he fears that the wrong things will no longer be remembered. The undead are born with unusual powers, and thanks to the demonic beginnings in their bodies, humanity has almost already been exterminated, until a great sage was born, who learned the art of acupuncture and possessed a hidden technique. Since then, the human race was given the opportunity to fight against the evil, and continued to grow and develop. Later, a state was founded. Civilization has always sought the total destruction of each other. The war continues, and joining is the life of many. After he enters the realm of the undead, will he be the next victim? Roland stood in front of the girl at this moment. That demoness in front of him is the target of the first mission. Her name is Bai Ling. At first glance she looks weak, but he knows she is very dangerous. It was a very important assignment. Here's the info. First goal, all he has to do is conquer her doors and infiltrate the realm of the undead. 3 months ago, she killed one of their diplomats. Their intelligence found her and captured her. According to their investigation, the facility belongs to the Qingqiu demonic face clan. Her status is not that low. The target is trying very hard to catch her. Have lost quite a few good people. Hence, the danger level is demoness, so don't underestimate her. They will arrange for him to meet her. Just let him follow the plan. Let it not come near the state, for the continuation of the human race. Roland said he would do it for himself. He hoped not to keep his promise. At this point, the main character was just standing there. The man said everything here is perpetually unpleasant, like a farm when he's done moonlighting for farmers. The protagonist asked what this place was, because it didn't look like a prison. That's right. More specifically, it's a test base set up specifically for other experiments. The protagonist asked what a test base meant. The girl was just listening to their conversation at this point. So people are experimenting on monsters here. Let them not rejoice in victory. Everything they've done to them, they'll pay back 1,000-fold. Does she even know what she's talking about? He will teach her to obey. No one has the right. Cross him. The girl at this point received a jolt of electricity. Of course, she started screaming in unbearable pain at this point. The protagonist watched as the man began to approach her. Then he pulled out his baton. He was ready to beat her up, and just at that moment, he hit her with all his might. If you look closely, she's okay, even though she's a monster. But if she can keep him entertained, the man scrutinized the moment carefully. The girl, of course, could do nothing at this point, but the hero wondered what the man was up to. Those legs, that's what she's really like. Does she even have a tail? The man scrutinizes. Then the chain went up a bit. Someone grabbed his arm. Surprisingly, it was Roland. The man came and looked at him. The humans claim to be intelligent, civilized beings, yet they allow themselves to treat their captives like this. So what's the difference between the two races? The man asked if the guy was threatening him. He just doesn't want them to get into unnecessary trouble. Better stay away from these demons, or else he fears it will affect his future movement in office. The girl just listened. High-ranking officials in the capital would surely look down on a warden who had the joy of laughing at a demon, wouldn't they? If such behavior reached his ears, he feared he would remain trapped here for the rest of his life. A realization came to the man at that moment. It really wasn't thought out. These capital city officials pride themselves on being civilized. If they find out he's flirting with a demon, he won't be welcome. Then his career will be over. Agent Roland was such an honorable man at such a young age. Not only was he a good judge of character, and had a knack for getting his senses in order, his future was simply limitless. The girl still hadn't said a word. He makes a case, sure, but that thing went against him. Can't forgive such a transgression so easily. Roland looked at the girl at this moment. If he doesn't calm down, let him take the full brunt of it for good. The man asked what it meant to take a hit on himself. Well, if he wants it, he'll hit it. The protagonist fell. The man said to let the guy get his. After that, the two men started beating him. Of course, Roland was in pain at this point. The girl didn't have any emotion on her face. She just watched it. The men continued to beat him. Then one of them hit him right in the head. After that, the protagonist passed out. The chief probation officers told them to get out of here. Have him keep an eye on this guy. He's already escaped from a northern prison. He seems to have a temper, so if he escapes, there will be no mercy from him. The main character was still hooked at this point. The girl asked if he was alive. When she got no response, she turned to him once more. The protagonist still hadn't responded. She wasn't forgotten to death in there, was she? She started saying she couldn't do it without him. After that, she started reaching for him with her foot. Life began. She doesn't want to be indebted to him. The protagonist continued to lie down at this point. Then he began to hear the sounds of his name being called. Then in an instant, he was on some kind of chair in total darkness. A bright spotlight turned on. The protagonist covered his eyes. He's told that it is a secret government intelligence service, and he has been selected as a secret agent for a special mission. He has no choice but to accept. Upon successful completion of the mission, his past is cancelled and he can start a new life. At that moment, he watched his sister by his side. The protagonist didn't expect to see her. The girl said it was her birthday. Let her remember to buy a chocolate cake. At that moment, the man put his hand on her shoulder. Roland came in and started yelling at Xiaoman to be careful. He must complete the mission and then his family can live. Otherwise, they will all be killed because of him. let him work for them and for those he loves. The main character was furious and couldn't take it. After that, he woke up. The girl, of course, noticed it. The protagonist scratched his head and turned to the girl. She looked at him in surprise at this point. The protagonist then shyly removed his head. She shyly asked if he'd had a bad dream. Roland said you could say that. He doesn't think this place can even dream good dreams. He just got beat up because of her. Maybe she realizes that she didn't ask him to help, and he was beaten unconscious. What a shame. If he hadn't interfered, she would have been long gone by now. The girl didn't let him finish and introduced herself. Bai Ling. She asked him what his name was and who he was. The main character introduces himself and says he's just a nobody. She'd just heard them say he'd escaped from prison. Yes, he escaped from the Green Island in the north, but unfortunately he was caught again. The girl had heard that the Green Island had very tight security, but he managed it. Roland asked if she was really trying to get information out of him, so she could lend it to the warden later. She's actually Haizun, a warrior of the Qingqiu clan. It's better for her not to engage in conversation with Dan's man. She'd rather die. So she's from the Qingqiu clan. Hanzun is the highest-ranking martial artist. Right. What's that look on his face? Let him untie her. She'd make quick work of him, knowing how many people she'd killed when they tried to catch her. If she wasn't restrained here, she'd have slaughtered the whole damn prison by now. Roland started to speak to get her to calm down, and noticed that she was violent. He didn't doubt her status, just a little wary. He always thought that if guys locked up a girl, it could be a conspiracy. Probably just wanted to make her question everything. He thinks too much. It's not just a bunch of civilized beasts like domestic animals. So what difference does it make who's around who? Wasn't it the same on the Green Island? The protagonist said he'd been locked up, sure, but not with such beauties. Well, now that they've talked it over, let him show her how to look. The girl was interested to see what it was all about. Then she was very much surprised. Surprise! The guy's handcuffs fell off abruptly. She couldn't understand how on earth he had done it. These handcuffs are specially designed for demons, even with the use of demonic power, and they are impossible to break. The protagonist said that, of course, force won't help here, but what he has in his hands will help. The girl asked what else it was. The main character said it's a kind of hacking thing he invented himself. You can still use it in your ears if you pick your ears. Did he just use it to open the lock or something? The protagonist asked. Well, yeah, what's the big deal? The mechanism here is not as complicated as high-tech locks. The simpler the better. On the Green Island, the lock was much more complicated and opened differently. He made his living stealing in the city for years. So many locks have been picked, she has no idea. So it's a piece of cake. So he was a thief and a skillful kidnapper. Then how did he get that thing through the detector? Didn't he get tested? The protagonist said it was the easiest thing to do. Let her look more closely. The protagonist flexed his arms. After that, the stud just disappeared. The girl was surprised it was so fast. Where had he put her? After that, Roland extended his hand toward her. What's he doing? Tell him to take his hand away. She is going to bite him. Well, just at that moment, the main character pulled out a stiletto. Don't let her worry. He's just taking his from her. How did he do it without her noticing? He just focused her attention on his hands, so she wouldn't have time to feel anything the moment he spread his arms. Maybe he threw it anywhere, just like that. So did he sneak it in here or what? In front of the detector. He hid it from the guards. Accordingly, no prohibited items were found and he successfully skipped. He went back to her. Why was he so sure the guards wouldn't check him out? The protagonist reached out and was ready to answer. He wasn't sure, so he threw it over to the warden. So what's he planning to do now? Of course, the main character plans to get out of this damn place. Was he going to do it at all? The protagonist escaped from the Green Island, but won't escape from here, or what? He's not gonna sit here locked up and be a guinea pig. He'd rather die trying to escape, so he's already got a plan. There is, but he needs a strong assistant to realize it. There are some great monsters with good cultivation among the locked up ones, and honestly, the one he needs is her. The protagonist asked confidently, or was it her? He seems to have no idea what it means to bear the title of Hanzun. Let him take that title off her. She'll show him the horror of humanity. Bai Ling of Qingqiu, she's been around for a while. He knows for a fact that he will set her free if he unleashes her. He's probably afraid she'll kill him as soon as she uncuffs him. Let her take them off. He'll get her out of here. However, he has no other choice. At this point in the building, he understood everything. People have already organized cooperation, but he can be sure. Let him not worry, although it does not guarantee that the task will be completed. The man hung up the phone at this point. He told Agent Roland to himself that they should work together. At that moment he uncuffed her. Roland saw her true appearance. She was truly awful and scary. She hadn't expected to be so capable. The feeling of freedom was so wonderful. It seems to be much scarier than the report describes. He feels exactly the same oppression as when women in the Secret Service. The girl began to look around at this point. It seems the situation has gotten a little out of hand. What bothers him the most is that while the Secret Service has everything under control, there is one thing that just can't be controlled. The girl liked the smell. It's the demoness herself. According to intelligence, she and the other clients have been to the front lines before. Someone who's in custody for the first time can't be trusted. Well, her strength exceeds her expectations. Her personality is hard to unravel. He can't afford to fail, otherwise they won't leave him alone. In the Secret Service, there's only one ending for losers. So for everything he holds dear, let him live, join the demon clan himself, and become the sharpest knife in their hearts. You can't deviate from the plan. Everything must be under control. The girl turned her attention to him. At that moment, the protagonist was very surprised. Then she literally threw herself at him. She began to move closer to him. The girl almost forgot who he was. What clan was he from after all? How did he have such hacking skills? The main character was terrified. Roland said that he was from the lineage of the Silent Wolf clan of the Northwest. He learned hacking from a Xuanwu master who died early. Therefore, he had to earn a living with this skill. Is it true? Is he sure he's not lying to her? The main character was scared to death. His heart was beating very fast. At that moment, the girl noticed something. She got caught up with him, almost forgot she wanted revenge. The protagonist slightly misunderstood her. She wants revenge on the warden for the way he treated her. She's gonna tear him apart. He didn't understand what she was up to. The girl turned her attention to him. He said the most important thing for them right now was to get away from here. They could do anything there, at any time. The girl was a little wary of that answer, but then she said he was right. She couldn't stay here any longer. So, how are they going to get out? What's his plan? In general, his plan involves the use of a probation officers. Let him talk. He listened. The main character pointed her finger and told her to look over there. They're just pipes. What do they have to do with their plan? The prison has pipes leading outside. His plan is to use the piping to escape but they were thin. How's he gonna do that? The main character said there are fat people. When he was taken away, he saw pipes whose diameter was so large that down scenes of monsters could be led through them. If they could find a diagram of the pipes, they could get out. And where would you get it? Such an important item must be kept in the office of the criminal warden. They just need to sneak in and kidnap the warden himself. Then they will find the scheme and finally use it as cover to retreat into the pipeline. The jailers won't catch them there without the scheme. But can they handle the warden? They'll probably need more help. Don't let him worry. Just one probation worker. She'll tear him apart. Then there's only one problem left to solve. So how do we get close to him? They have to make him pay attention to them. How so? Let him provide it to her. She has information they need. It's something they wouldn't say no to. After much deliberation, the girl said she didn't need to. She had just gotten free. Roland said there's no choice. I mean, they just discussed that they need to lure the guards here, so they'll have to pretend to be shackled for a while. She doesn't want their plan to fail, does she? The girl agreed, through reluctance, and held out her hands for him to cuff her. After a while, the protagonist was handcuffed. He said he's all set. He's starting. The protagonist realized that everything was great. Everything is going according to his plan. Just a good job left to do. The main character started the show, yelling for someone to come, started calling for security. He started saying it was very important. He had something to report. Have someone come over. He asked for someone to come over here. Who's yelling? He wants to. Hey, but he doesn't know. Let them screw it up. Shut them down. He said. The man in charge told the guards to go to him. There's something he wants to tell them. Son of a bitch. Is he yelling in here or what? He's gonna tear it up. Is he saying he has something to tell you? This is the moment the girl said it was her. The protagonist, surprisingly, began to get defensive. The guard was very much surprised. Did she ask him to have him tell the chief that she can't stay in this place any longer and wants to report some information about the location of the intelligence headquarters and their clan? Have them take them to the chief immediately before she changes her mind. Roland looked at him at this moment. The man was surprised, interjecting about the intelligence headquarters. At that moment, in the office of the chief probation officers, Bai Ling of Qingqiu was a highly placed figure in the realm of uncleanness. There must be a lot of information. Let her speak and he'll think about how valuable she is. Though it's a collaboration, but if you actually manage to dig up useful information, it will be a great accomplishment. The chief and the girl were standing in the office at this moment. Now they'll see how she can get close to the boss, and what information she'll pass on. But that's not a problem. He will cooperate as a matter of course. They'll fool the warden, find the pipe pattern, and get out of here. Everything's going according to plan. Now it was her turn. There are 4 men at 8, 7, 6 and 5 o'clock. That at 12 o'clock is their strongest fighting power. The man couldn't understand what he was saying there, for he couldn't hear anything. The protagonist didn't understand what she was muttering. This girl was counting at that moment. Then she looked at the window. She told the man in charge at this point that she had come up with another plan in a whisper. Roland was very much surprised. She suggested just jumping out the window and running away. Roland, of course, was very much surprised. They continued to stand in the office at this point. Does she seriously want to jump out the window or what? This girl. Suddenly the idea came, and she had another plan. The Secret Service had been working out his evacuation. Now it was putting sticks in his wheels. If she suddenly suspected that he was in grief and the family would be in danger. Moreover, the cliff below is incredibly high, more than 1,000 meters from the sea. If I don't jump, there will be nothing left of them. The protagonist quickly approached her at that moment. Roland asked her through a cough why she had suddenly changed their plan. Didn't they agree to take the warden hostage? Get the scheme? Maybe squeeze through the pipeline. And their goal is to escape, so wouldn't it be faster to just jump out the window? The protagonist said that of course it would be easier there, but does she know how high they are? There's a cliff below, so if they can't fly, they'll just die. It's too risky. Let him trust. Everything will be fine. Trust. They just met yesterday. How can he trust her? The girl just looked at him at this point. Then let them stay in the locks. He's good at picking, so he'll find a way to escape. If someone escaped like that, they'd be executed. Then he has no other choice, does he? The man tapped on the table at that moment. He asked what they were whispering about. The girl and the main character looked at him. He warns, no tricks. If they're messing around in there, the consequences will be brutal. Let them think of their families. Don't they want to come back alive? Roland tensed up. Did that lady ask him to remind him of his purpose or what? The protagonist became completely furious at these words. The girl, of course, noticed it. So, let them tell what they know. If the information is valuable, he will grant them their freedom. They continued to stare at him at this point. The girl turned her attention to the man behind her. Then she moved forward. You have to be ready. The next step is to get attached. She can't give any information they want, but she can only tell it to him alone. Is he or she the right man? The man was interested. Then he got up from the table and began to approach the girl. He was practically beside her by now. So, after the fight, he'll be taken hostage, then find the scheme and escape through the pipeline, and then the mission will be successfully completed. But at that moment something tensed the man. He said it wasn't that simple. What should he do? This demon is bound to kill him. He's just a probation worker. He'll die. His superiors will find a replacement. So this plan threatens not only Agent Roland, but him as well. Yes, her face was clearly expressing that she was going to tear it up. And the agent? Roland winked like a madman at this point to the man. There must be some way to warn him, that she wants to jump out the window, so that he realizes she'll warn him about something, and then she'll drop the idea and go back to his plan. Of course, he's trying to show him that there really is danger. Why is it so easy for him to point him to look at the window behind him? At that moment, the man turned his attention to the window behind him. At that moment, he realized it all. The agent wanted to say he could let them cross out and expel. Then he'd have to take hostages and he'd be alive. He saves him again. What an honorable man, after all. He makes sure to pay him. The protagonist didn't understand, or the man really understood what he meant. At that moment, the man stopped. The girl couldn't understand his actions. She asked him if he, the honorable warden, was afraid to approach, and it looked so majestic in the cell then. The man laughed at this point. The girl asked, or he was amused. The man continued to laugh. It was funny, his clumsy way of fooling her. He'd been holding her for so long, she hadn't even dared to open her mouth, and now she was talking. He asked, or she thought he would believe her lies. She's stupid for coming here. Everyone was greatly surprised by his words. The man in charge couldn't understand why he had gone along with their plan. He was supposed to approach the girl, pretend to be defeated and taken hostage, then find the scheme and take the demoness away through the pipeline. His plan was much safer than jumping. After all, he didn't expect this. The look on her face said she was clearly shocked. If his hunch is correct, then she wants him to step up and let her attack him. Right, there's no other way to escape. Or what? The prison's piping diagram is hidden in his safe. But he figured them out. Arrogant idiot. He made two fatal mistakes. What is she talking about? Roland was also wary. She hadn't yet realized she was at a disadvantage. So dare to talk to him like that. She's afraid he's the one who didn't get it. Mr. Warden, why does he think she came here to see him? She really needs the scheme. But how can she get it if it's in the safe? Exactly. He wonders how she plans to take her to, since she's still handcuffed. At that moment, some kind of realization came to him. The girl abruptly got out of her handcuffs and approached him. The handcuffs opened at that moment. That's a lot of nerve for a man. Then she began to attack him. The man bounced a few meters away. He was surprised that she actually opened them. He shouldn't have underestimated her. The main character was tense at this time. The man asked, or was it Roland's doing? Now I can see how he escaped from the Green Island. Let them take off the handcuffs. All without. The man started pulling something out of his pocket. He pulled out a walkie-talkie. He says it's the head warden ordering the guards to slowly make their way to his office. Prisoners try to avoid. Class A martial law is imposed. He repeats, Class A martial law. The atmosphere between them was knee-deep. They'll see what they do now. We just need to cut off any other escape routes. So there's nothing left to do but jump out. He put oil on their fire. Let them shoot. Kill them? The man pointed the gun directly at them. The girl turned to the guy at this point. The protagonist noticed it too. Then they started shooting at them. The girl immediately approached the guy to save him. After that, she began to reincarnate, and then used her tail to save the guy from the bullets. Let them prepare. They're acting now. Does she really want to jump out, or what? The girl asked if he had any other ideas. The warden wants to kill him. It is unknown if they will survive if they jump out. He'll kill the warden. It's not so easy to escape now. The man started to do something at this point. Then, in the blink of an eye, he had a weapon. He had a very long weapon. The girl was quite surprised by this. He had truly reached the realm of the masses. By the standards of the human race, this should be the milestone of third-level materialization. There are 720 acupuncture points in the human body. If you open to 106, you can collect energy and transform it. They can't avoid it today. Roland asked what they should do. If they could defeat him, fighting will only delay their escape. We just have to jump out the window. The girl looked at the window at that moment. She told Roland to follow her. After that, they actually headed towards the window. Great, everything's going as planned. Just the final touch. He told the agent to himself that he was running. The man was ready to attack. The protagonist was quite surprised. Just at that moment, the protagonist returned from his attack. The man looked at him at that moment. Then he made a motion with his hand. After that, Roland began to fall. The girl noticed it. She told him to help her. but at that moment, the girl just turned around. The hero couldn't understand if she would leave him here. After that, the girl stretched out her arm, then she broke the glass. The man said, looking like his ally didn't seem to be that strong. Well, he'll take care of him first. The man began to forget Roland at this point, but at the last moment, the girl prevented him from doing so. Roland was greatly surprised and noticed that the girl had grabbed his leg. Then she put him with her. After that, the protagonist found himself in midair. The panes from the window began to fall downward. The girl looked down enigmatically. Roland asked if they could think again. At this point, they had already begun to fall. The girl jumped from the window. They both began to fly. The girl was sure that was the best option. Roland, of course, was not prepared for such a thing. Let the agent not blame him. He was only following orders. The man asked the man on the phone, or is he wrong? They want him to do it. The agent must be seriously injured in the escape to eliminate suspicion as much as possible. That's an order. It's up to him how best to carry it out, but he must live up to his expectations. He guarantees that the assignment will be completed. The man told the agent he was sorry. The protagonist at this point noticed that it was very high. The man said that too. At this point, the protagonist didn't suspect anything. At that moment, he turned back around. Just then, the man poked him and said that was part of the plan too. The main character started coughing up blood. The girl turned to him. Meanwhile, she was trying to help him in every way possible. She began to turn to him. The protagonist grabbed the main warden's weapon at that moment. He couldn't understand why the man would do such a thing. At this point, the weapons began to disappear. The warden was just observing. He apologized to the agent. He's just following orders. The girl began to see Roland at this point. The main character said he was dying. The girl said he wasn't going to die. She promised him. At that moment, the girl curled up in a ball. Then they plunged under the water. After that, all they had to do was watch. Have them notify the Marine Patrol to watch their face. The patrol began to survey the entire surface of the sea. No fugitives found in Sea Zone 3. Let them continue their search. The man said he didn't think they'd find them. And the other, God willing, agreed. The third sea zone is huge. They're the only ship. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. They've probably been at the bottom for a long time. At this point, something could be observed. The man didn't realize what else it was. They started actively searching that place. It was an enemy vessel with an unknown object approaching on the starboard side. They turned on the floodlights at that point, and then the girl was approaching them. They couldn't figure out what the hell it was. After that, the girl showed up at their door. Of course, she was furious. She was closing in on them. Then they started shooting at her. The girl, of course, went on the defensive. Afterward, she looked at them sternly. Bai Ling cut them in half in one motion. The man they hit was quite surprised by this. Then the man himself got it. The girl stepped onto the ship. That's when you could hear the screams from the ship. The girl continued to kill everyone in her path. A man, most likely the captain, told her not to kill him. The girl asked if he knew how to drive a boat. The man said he could do it. He could help, just let him be spared. Let him sail to the wicked sea. Keep a signal on board. Keep in contact with the main station. Tell them they decided to look closer to the wicked sea. And let him watch. Don't do anything stupid or she'll kill him. The man said he would do anything. At that moment, the girl put Roland on the floor. Roland didn't look good. The girl told him not to be afraid. They were safe. She then asked the man where they had the first aid kit here. He would bring it over now. They were still moving at this point. The man was very nervous. Strangely enough, steering the vessel, the girl tried to help the guy in every way possible. After a while, she finished and sat her down across from him. His wound was deep, but she managed. The girl looked at him without any emotion. The protagonist went through great agony and suffering, but it also felt like he was dreaming about something. He was apparently remembering moments in his life, as he sat on a bench with children playing around him. One of the children was playing with a toy made of paper. The girl was telling her brother to watch how fast the spinner was spinning. Roland saw the girl asking him not to hurt her so quickly, or the chopper would fall and the principal would see and reprimand him again. At that moment, the girl approached him. The girl said he didn't buy her a fidget spinner. She is very angry. the cutest babe in the universe, is celebrating her birthday tomorrow, and he was just about to buy her a very delicious cake. The girl asked if it was true. Then she began to move closer to him. She sat her down next to him and said that she wanted a chocolate cake then, so that there would be lots and lots of chocolate, and let him promise. Roland said they had a deal. What do you mean, agreed? Doesn't he have an assignment? Roland didn't realize what his sister had said at this moment. The girl said he hadn't completed the assignment yet. Closing her eyes, she said they could all die. The protagonist came to be horrified by this picture. They all had blood on their faces. The protagonist has changed, much to his surprise. Is it nice to watch people close to him die before his eyes? At that moment, he turned around to see who it was. It was Lan Muyan. What disrespect to him. She's Mrs. Lan Muyan. The protagonist stepped closer to her. She promised that as long as he worked for the Secret Service, he would be safe. The girl asked who he thought he was. Let him remember that he has no right to set conditions. His family's life depends on her whim. He is lucky the Secret Service likes him. But don't let him realize he's not the only one. He'll get the job done, and she'll treat him well. But he didn't need it. He just wants her to be safe. After that, the girl hit him. Roland came to rage at her. Then she kicked him. The main character flew off of her and fell. He was really hurting at this point. She began to move closer to him. Then she rested her foot against his body. She said, let him call her Mrs. Lan Muyan. The Secret Service's beau can only be his. Her faithful dog. Encouragement and punishment are her gifts. If he dares disobey again, she will take his head. The protagonist understood what was happening. Then he shouted very loudly. It was really hard for him. Then the protagonist opened his eyes. He looked back and saw a man steering the boat. He realized it was a stupid dream again. Even in the dream, he was powerless, unable to fight back. It really pissed him off to be told he was a faithful dog. He promised he'd show the girl a convinced dog had fangs. Looks like he's having another nightmare. The protagonist simply remained silent. At this point, he looked at his wound. He thanked her for saving him. He returned the favor. If he hadn't gotten rid of her handcuffs, they wouldn't have escaped. He was confident that his injury would recover after a while. After all, he was from the Silent clan, and they had an innate strong ability to regenerate. Roland asked if they were on the ship. They continued on their way. When he passed out, he grabbed the ammunition of the ship he was told to look for. The protagonist asked if it was a person. She killed everyone except those in control. You could see it as compensation for lost time in prison. Roland could observe the murdered men at this moment in the corner. They were brutally murdered by the girl. The protagonist asked where they were going. The man started yelling for them to be careful. They both couldn't understand what it meant. At that moment, they were abruptly knocked over. As it turned out, a big wave was to blame. The protagonist fell again at this point. Roland asked her if they had been attacked. The girl told him not to panic and they arrived. The protagonist looked confused. The protagonist didn't understand what arrived meant. Of course, this was the closest path in the third sea zone, leading to the Xuanwu Kingdom, a sea of darkness. They continued on through this sea. The protagonist and the girl went outside. The protagonist said it looked quite dangerous. It was truly mesmerizing. He's from the demon clan himself, but he has never seen a storm. This turbulence is the main reasons. No wonder the kingdom's naval attacks are ineffective. The kingdom of men has become very powerful now, and she is afraid. Without this sea, they would have lost the southern part long ago. They kept moving. The protagonist was barely on his feet. This is where they didn't care if he was slimmer or not. If they hit the floor, the ship could capsize. Don't let him panic. She won't let him die in the belly of a fish. Then she started calling out for someone. It was a very strange method of calling someone out. Then it could be observed that some sort of creature appeared. She turned her attention to the ship. Then they all began to approach him. One of them climbed into the ship at this point. The protagonist asked who they were. The protagonist was surprised to see them. Then they were all already on the ship. They started approaching the girl and the guy. The man thought that was the end of it. The creature then told him to get out. Roland asked if the girl had summoned them with that howl. She answered that it was so. It was the Sentinels. The creature asked who they were. Had the ship been taken over by a human state? Went out into the water of the kingdoms of the unclean. But no message was sent to them. The girl introduced herself as Hazen from the Qingqiu clan. Bai Ling. 3 months ago, she had been captured in Juanwu, but now she had escaped. Let them take her back. She will be richly rewarded. Is it true that she's a Hazen from the Qingqiu clan? The girl began to use her power at this point. The girl asked if he didn't believe her. The creature looked at him. They greeted the lady and congratulated her on her successful escape. Quite politely, have them deliver her to Hanchang as soon as possible. Also, no one must know she's coming back. From now on, they don't leave her side an inch. The protagonist watched the girl carefully. The creature said it understood everything. Hanchan, some creature was on its knees. He informed me that the third mistress had entered the city. He didn't expect her to be able to escape from human captivity. There was no more news from her, not even time to take action. He has become much more experienced, but he is afraid that she will bring trouble in the future. They want him to take care of her or something. She just got back, so their footsteps will be noticeable. The time will come, and he'll get everything he wants sooner or later. Han Sheng's peers, the girl and her boyfriend, were accompanied at this point. Madame says they will escort her to the city, but they have to go. She hoped they would have a good time in Han Sheng. She thanked them for their help. Ao Jiang, she would ask Ao Sha, Admiral of the Coastal Defense, to appoint him Commander-in-Chief. He thanked the lady. The protagonist said it was his first time in Hansheng. Did not expect it to be so prosperous. His surprise is understandable, if only because the state is far superior to the realm of the Unholy. Hansheng is adjacent to the sea and has good trade opportunities due to the waterways. Plus, it's guarded by heavy troops. It's one of the 3 criminal cities in the kingdom, so it's not surprising. Where are they going now? The girl said they were going home. Some cars were driving through town at this point. Roland and the girl turned their attention to them. At this point, they stopped. The girl and the guy were watching this moment intently. The girl was surprised. Roland wondered if those cars were after her. What a lot of them. At that moment, the doors opened. Some girl got out of the car. Then her face could be observed, and then she started approaching the girl with the guy. The protagonist noticed that she was a beauty. The girl then leaned in front of Bai Ling. The girl greeted Mistress. Mistress had finally escaped. She was so relieved when she found out. Bai Ling asked Yulia, was she okay? Surprisingly, after this question, the girl started crying. She said she has missed her day and night since the day of her arrest. Bai Ling was also teary-eyed at this moment. Then the girl turned her attention to Roland. Who is he? Roland had slightly not expected such a question. The girl said his name was Roland. He helped her escape from prison. She thanked him for saving her. Mistress, she would be sure to repay him, but there was no need to bow. She suggested we talk about everything at home. The girl agreed to the proposal. She said the mistress is sitting down. No greeting for the mistress. The protagonist will go with her. After that, the motorcade started driving over the bridge. At this point in the car, Roland and the girl just sat there and didn't talk. The protagonist looked at her. Then he averted his gaze and started looking out the window. If he has any questions, let him speak. He saved her life, so let him not be shy. Roland asked if she could just drop him off somewhere along the way. Didn't want to mess with the big shots. The girl looked at him. He got her out. He's the reason she's alive now. Doesn't he want her to repay her family's opportunity? This fee could change his fate. The main character couldn't understand what families meant. Who was she anyway? Originally, this city was not called Hansheng, but Qingqiu. It was the sacred city of the demonic face clan, with their ancestors being the corner city of the 9-tailed foxes. Qingqiu. After the Holy War, he was defeated. The demon king submitted. The city of Qingqiu was renamed to Hansheng after the demons. In order to control the power of their clan, moved 23 major clans and 24 minor clans to hold the island together. Hansheng became the center of the island and the entire kingdom. Now, there are 4 main clans living on the island, such as Qingqiu, Bai, Sheng and Yu. Qingqiu is the most important of the major ones. What a shame. He himself belongs to the demon clan, but he knows nothing about it, having survived on the streets of Xuanwu since he was a child. Is he refusing his reward or what? Of course he wasn't kidding. He knew before that she was quite popular here, but now he's learned the details. He really doesn't want a handout, doesn't want to have anything to do with anything or what? The main character said it was just like that. No one had ever said no like that before. And if he came back with her, he'd be rewarded handsomely. If he didn't want something more, at least let him take the money. He had to live on something. Roland said, money is certainly a good thing. Tell him to shut up and stop bickering already.